It was interesting because it became a bit of a habit. Unlike you, I have at times been a competitive bird. I don't. So it became
uncompetitive.
I'm trying to be better. I tried the biggest shots that I had was when I clicked into Bïndo one morning. And I mentioned that I used to do that quite regularly, just
Every morning.
every morning.
How many times a day? This is not interesting.
I noticed a photograph of your feet on the front of a sea kayak with Cape Point in the background. So you're obviously facing back to Cape Point. And I realized, no, you didn't go on a boat. You actually paddled out to the deep ocean. So can you maybe tell us what makes you do something that crazy? Good evening, Bïndo birders. It's Mike here, sitting here with my good mate, Dave Winter.
How's the mic?
And our special guest this evening is Guy Bond.
Are you right?
I won't say too much about Guy just yet. We'll get onto why Guy is sitting with us this evening. What we're doing with this podcast, our first podcast ever, and hopefully not our last, but we're about to launch our Spring Challenge, which is our flagship event at Bïndo. And we had an incredible Spring Challenge last year. We got so many new users jumping onto the app and using it, creating a lot of data, lots of Atlas cards. And so we're going to give it a full go again this year. And we're offering pretty much amazing prizes. We've got a pair of Swarovski binoculars, which is the grand prize. We've got a Merv flask for the most bird species seen. We've got a pair of sunglasses for the best photograph. And I got those mixed up, but it doesn't matter. Still great prizes. And then we've got a pair of Jim Green boots for those that won the draw on the number of Atlas cards submitted. But the Spring Challenge is running from the 1st of September to the 30th of November. It's basically just getting out there and logging bird species on Bïndo. We'd love you to do some atlasing. But essentially, if you log more than 100 bird species, you get into a lucky draw, which is for that grand prize of the Swarovski binoculars. So we really are looking to get as many users as possible. And I'll certainly be out there. I'm sure Dave and Guy will be doing the same. So see you out in the field. But the main reason we're here this evening is our special guest, Guy. Guy, before we get on to what you did last year, maybe just give us a quick précis of who you are and what you do and what brings you to Cape Town and tell us what makes you tick.
Well, birds make me tick, amongst other things. I work in conservation, not on birds, unfortunately. I started there. Some of my earliest memories are birding. My dad was a fanatical birder, absolutely loved it. So I think from the age of 5, I've been birding and I've loved the bush. And and so basically that was my childhood, going on birding trips all over the place. And it was one of the great things about the Spring Challenge was going back to visit many of the places that I did as a child. But what I'm doing now, like I say, I work in conservation. I work for an NGO called Panthera. It's an NGO which focuses on wildcat conservation. So headquartered in the US, headquartered in New York, but they fund and oversee projects on different cat species all over the world. And so in Asia, we work on things like tigers and snow leopards. In Latin America, jaguars and mountain lions, and here in Africa, and on lions, leopards, cheetahs. And so though I'm focused on cats, one of the problems about working on big cats is for the most part you hardly ever see them. So it gives me a lot of opportunity to bird in between and takes me to some weird and wonderful places all over the world. And so, like I say, started in birding and then subsequently have drifted into cat conservation. But yeah, birding will always be very close to my heart.
Have you done a Cape leopard?
I have not seen Cape leopard. It's very sad. No, so I worked on leopards. That was did my PhD on leopards, but working in northern KwaZulu-Natal.
Okay.
And so I spent 8-9 years living in Zululand, studying leopards in Bïndo Private Game Reserve and Cruzy Game Reserve and all the farms around there. It's awesome. But and I've subsequently worked on leopards throughout most of Africa, up into Iran, into the Middle East, Saudi Arabia, in India. But the one leopard that I've not seen is the Cape leopard. So
okay.
No, I'd love to. And some people are very lucky, and You can see them in places where we go look for birds like royals and
I've seen Cape Leopard twice at Royal.
Tasha's just seen it twice.
Crazy.
With clients looking for rock jumpers.
yeah, and I've heard stories folks tell they're always talking about the black eagle.
Love them. Exactly.
The silver cats.
Yeah, Steve, you see a black eagle like flying in a weird pattern.
Same
We
as
see them a scan for,
Amazing.
Cape Leopard.
Our good friends Cliff and Sarita, they've seen Cape Leopards while driving out to the Tankwa. Cape Leopards crossed the road just after the Toys Cliff tunnel. So it's just one of those things. You've got to be in the right place at the right time.
So we're probably jumping ahead, but I am going to say, because we're talking about cats, let's get cats out the way. One of the great things about the Spring Challenge was actually the small carnivores that one I got to see. So another focus was birds, but you do when you're birding, you just see everything.
Yeah.
So I got to see several character sightings here in the Western Cape. Had an African wildcat sighting up at a Krabi's being mowed by, I think it was a Crumiprinia. And then probably the highlight was an incredible serval sight.
Oh, wow.
On Sony Pies.
I've never seen serval.
So I'm in the same boat. It's the cat I really want to see.
Just unbelievable. I thought I was looking at a leopard at first.
Yeah.
I just saw something. We're moving through this long grass, and so they got the bins out, and
We're going to get on to why a little bit later you were on Sony Pass.
Yeah.
That was one of the questions.
One of the
detours later. Yeah, a bit of a detour. But I think you're the envy of many people listening to the work that you do, but I'm sure it's hard work, lots of travel. But let me start by saying, in terms of the Spring Challenge, when we launched the Spring Challenge, our colleague at Bïndo, Rob, sort of threw out a few sort of numbers that he thought people might achieve. We even had a bet of a bottle of whiskey. And he thought that 400 would be an incredible effort in the Spring Challenge. And I genuinely thought 400 was a good number. So I'm gonna say right up front that you knocked it all out of the park. So, Guy, you ended up with 600 bird species in the Spring Challenge, which in a period of 3 months is just insane. So I think the first question I want to ask you around the Spring Challenge is, what made you make the decision, and at what point was the decision that you were going to give the Spring Challenge a full go on Bïndo?
sure.
Was it beforehand, or was there a moment when you started logging a few birds and you thought, okay, you know what, I'm going to give this a go?
Do you know what? So I'd used Bïndo a few times that year. I'd only discovered it through Rob and I were friends at university. But and like I say, I birded hard as a kid. I really did, and with my old man. But then though I mean, one always birds. It doesn't matter what you're doing, you're birding. It's just one of those things. But I probably not with the same focus as I had done in my younger days. Once I started working for Panthera, but actually with my kids started getting back into it. My daughter in particular, she's 10, she loves birding, and I knew from Rob about Bïndo, and so it was a great tool to take the kids out, get them actively involved, and so we'd done a couple of, when we were doing camping trips, we'd started listing, and I'd heard of the Spring Challenge. I knew it was coming up, and again, also I was getting more involved with atlasing at that time. I will be honest, I have never been a competitive birder, Mike, until there was someone else that I heard that was really going.
I don't know who that could be.
Full guns blazing in this. A little bird told me on my shoulder here that...
I think you were prodded, actually.
I was prodded, definitely. I was also offered shares in a bottle of whiskey that you just mentioned. But no, so I think it picked up momentum as it went. I was very fortunate that my work, I travel a lot, and I travel a lot locally, and it just gave me an opportunity to really to get into it. And like I say, once the ball was rolling, it was hard to start. And there was no fixed target in mind. There was towards the end, because I sort of figured at one stage I was like, 500 might be possible. This is on the cards, and then you're obviously just looking for the next.
We'll get to some of the specific locations, but maybe just to reveal, I gave it a full go, and the reason I was able to is because I had...
Well, what number did you come out? Sorry, just in there.
I came second. So
were you ever leading at any point, Mike?
No, I don't think so. I don't think I was. It was interesting because it became a bit of a habit, and unlike you, I have at times been a competitive birder. So
at times, it became
an uncompetitive birder.
I'm trying to be better. I try to be better. So it would be like early morning, and I wake up and I'd turn my phone on and I'd jump into the Bïndo app. And the great thing is you can quickly go into the Spring Challenge leaderboard and you can see what's going on. And there were a few moments that shot me to my core, because I thought I was making some ground, and then I would see that you were outbirding, and we'll come to a few places that really shocked me. But it's, I had I was fortunate that I had a few trips planned. So we were going to KZN for a 50th. I had a work trip to Hoedspruit, which I spent a weekend, and I did the Polokwane thing, and I know you did Polokwane as well. I followed some of your pins. You'll be pleased to hear. And then I had a trip to Zimbabwe at the end of the year. So and I did the Tonga Trail. So an amazing opportunity to get a big list. So I thought that I had a good chance to win the challenge. But it was interesting. There were so many things that interested me about your approach to it. I mean, obviously you did a lot of time, like tankwa.
Yep.
I saw you hit the tankwa early.
Yep.
And you cleaned up. And I know, I kept on saying to Rob, this is guy Balme, he's birding crazy, but he's seeing everything. And Rob said to me, he said, Guy's a good birder. He's been birding since he's a kid. And, I've never heard your name before, because I think you've just birded, sort of on your own and not part of like the very prominent community. But that tankwa trip, you just got everything. So maybe tell us a little bit about that. I mean, that was early. I think that was in September, which is a great time to go.
Yeah. So I guess probably just a few days. I can't even remember the order of it. But I think the very start of it was I went to Demont. So hit the Overberg, and I was on day one of the Spring Challenge, and it was clocked up all the specials there that you can see.
Then
Everything is calling.
Yeah.
It's like pumping.
And it was wet. And it was just water all over. So great water birds. Obviously,
Never Yar's River.
Yeah.
Where all the wetland stuff.
Exactly. There. So none of the migrants, none of the waders were at Demont itself, but you still just saw amazing birds on those sort of district roads as you go in and out. And I knew that area reasonably well, but the one area I didn't know was tankwa. I've never birded the tankwa before, Mike. So,
but you obviously know the Karoo stuff from other times spent in the Karoo.
Yeah, parts of it, but I think some of those birds in the tankwa are specific to the tankwa. You don't really see them in any other places, and so disclaimer, I very much used
some Bïndo pins.
Some Bïndo pins, and I think
that's one of the
benefits from both. No, and that was throughout the whole Spring Challenge, it was an invaluable resource, because you're getting GPS locations. You are seeing almost to the bush where those birds are found. And they are so habitual that you can go back and find them in the same forest patch or the same little habitat patch there, that they so often will be there. And so tankwa was a...
Did you get black-head sparrowhawk? Because it can be quite tough.
Not then, but when I went up to the northern Kayak, I did. And I was thinking, I know you were asking earlier about some lifers, and did I get any lifers? Many of the lifers that I got actually came from the tankwa coast, because it was a region I had not birded before. So things like cinnamon-breasted warbler, I think the Karoo area warbler, at Aocorp was a new one for me.
The black-head
sparrow, that would have been that cassette. It was a bit closer up to Pofada.
Yeah.
But so fantastic.
And did you get Sclater's lark up at Pofada?
Did not. Yeah. Do you know what?
So one of your dips, I guess.
One of my dips. So I spent many an hour sitting near waterfalls. Brunswick and out, and then a bit further north. Yeah. Do you know, my wife actually, she was on one of these trips with me, and I tried to convince her that larking is an actual...
It's a bit of bushing now.
Yeah, head into the bush now. It's very good.
I tried that as well. It didn't go down well.
You go on a romantic trip to bushing.
Why not?
Who knows it? Do that. But no, I dipped on Sclater's.
Did you get red lark?
I got a red lark in Code Dunes. Yeah. I think that was also a lifer.
Okay.
So that was good. But... yeah, I love that. We actually had a trip planned. This was not work-related, one of the few non-work-related trips, up to the Kalahari, which we had to scrap. One of the kids was
Yes, I remember actually. That was one of the places that made me panic, because it was an area you hadn't covered, and I heard that you were going to Kalahari, and I said, well, then I got no chance.
And so I did. I then snuck up just for a few days. Again, I did 2 trips up to the Northern Cape, but just for a couple of days up to Uppington. Discovered a new area, Katu, which I'd never been before. The Kalahari, what's a country club? There's golf, this green.
Well, it's Session Golf Course. It's a very highly rated golf course. It's very well known, but I've also not been there.
I'm no golfer, but it was a great place to bird.
Yeah.
Put a whole bunch of greenery in the Kalahari.
Yeah, it's just fuck.
And so it was, but that was the great thing about this. You just got to see so many off the sort of beaten track places that you would never go to. And,
I mean, like you said, you followed some pins.
Yeah,
But
many
if you think about it, going to Katu and to the Kalahari Country Club,
Yep.
the pins that you've obviously logged there will be very valuable to birders you visit there in the future. So it's just it's a great community because you're actually just helping.
I'm going to start the tourism market at Katu.
Fantastic.
I'll be forward that with that.
So I mean, it was Tanko, and then I think one of the I think the biggest shocks that I had was when I clicked into Bïndo one morning. Did I mention that I used to do that quite regularly? Just
Every morning, right?
Every morning.
How many times a day? It's not interesting. When you took me.
Well, with you, Guy, I had to do it multiple times a day because you could be in different provinces at different times of the day. So I clicked into Bïndo and I saw on your list that you had some pelagic birds. And I thought, that's awesome. You've got into a pelagic trip. You know, I wonder whether you went with, Zest or with Cape Town Pelagics. Who were you out there with? And did somebody on the back of some of Rob's suggestions give you a free trip? And why didn't they give me a free trip? And then I noticed on the media, so obviously in Bïndo you can upload your media, bird photographs and scenery photographs. I noticed a photograph of your feet on the front of a sea kayak with Cape Point in the background. So you're obviously facing back to Cape Point. And I realized, no, you didn't go on a boat. You actually paddled out to the deep ocean. So can you maybe tell us what makes you do something that crazy? Because you must have had to go quite far out to get some of the pelagic species.
It was that bottle of whiskey. was that bottle of whiskey? Actually, my portion of that bottle of whiskey. No, so I guess my other great passion, this is from later life, is I love kayaking and I love kayak fishing, and that often takes me off Cape Point. And
Where do you launch?
So either at Buffels, but and again, so I guess where some of my birding is a little bit different to how other people bird. Kayak fishing is a bit the same. I often launch off Good Hope, just because you are then sort of heading straight into the deep water.
Straight off the rocks there.
Straight off the rocks.
That's at the car park. You're literally going in there.
Yeah. Oh, right. So not many other people launch there because there can be a big surf, and if things go right, it gets messy quickly. But if you go looking for things like tuna and even the yellowtail, which are sort of around those southwestern reefs, just off the point. And
Do you go past Bellows?
You do go past.
Do you go past Bellows? Because it's quite far out now.
Sometimes 20 kilometers off Cape Point.
Really?
20.
You paddle 20 k's off Cape Point?
If you go looking for yellowfin tuna. So
Are you in a kayak or a surf ski?
No, kayak. Okay, kayak, yeah. So I started surf skiing, but no, they're when you're fishing like that,
Yeah, and I saw you a bit more stable.
yeah, a little bit more stable. You can pack your coffee and take a sandwich with you, and if you do catch anything, you can bring some sashimi home. So
Maybe a couple of flares.
I don't know if they send a flare up there. Who's gonna respond? That's the thing. It's but it's nice. I mean, and the sort of pelagic birding is phenomenal. I mean, it's better in winter, and it's and I guess it was the shoulder season, and I actually only did the one trip.
Yes.
And I didn't know if when I was sort of recognizing that 600 was a possible, that there may have been one other kayak trip to go pick up some others, and I think the day after the spring challenge finished, I actually went for a paddle and got a bunch of species that you just get in the Corey Shearwater,
Great Shearwater, yeah.
Red Shearwater I got during the challenge.
Yeah.
But Corey's I got, I think European Storm Petrel had just come back. Maybe the parasitic Jaegers, I think were there. I might even seen Sabine's gone. So because you're far offshore, so it's that was cool.
I'm starting to think with efforts like that, maybe you did deserve to quite comfortable. So maybe before we get onto the sort of the stuff towards where it got quite competitive, and we'll come to that in a sec.
Competitive.
Was it ever competitive, Mike? It sounds like you would know.
I mean, maybe
competition for you, Mike. I have no idea. Sorry.
Let's just jump to because I hadn't ever met you. I obviously knew that you and Rob were mates, and I'm sorry to realize now that was quite important for your efforts because you were being fed information. But I went for a run in Kirstenbosch one morning. I think it was sort of late October, so a month and a bit remaining. And I always knew I had this 1 week. I was going with my son to Zimbabwe. We were going to go see pittards. And I had a week at the end of November where And I got the timing a bit screwed up. I thought that I actually only had a day in Zimbabwe. So I thought, well, we can clean up some Miombo stuff before we go down to the valley. And I bumped into you and Rob in Kirstenbosch, birding. I was actually looking in a drone for the Cape Cobra that had been seen there quite regularly. And it was the first time I'd met you. And I pictured you as much more sort of aggressive, rugged, maybe confrontational. And I was surprised at how friendly you were. But there was this weird moment where we kind of looked each other in the eye. And I think I went first. Because there was this uncertainty of where our remaining locations were. Because I was still probably 50 or 60 species behind you, but I had this little Zimbabwe trip in the back. And I looked you in the eye and I revealed the Zimbabwe trip. And I think it was a critical error on my part because I think showing my hand made you change your plans. And we'll come to the change in plans in a sec. But that was the competitive.
So I have to just quickly say something. So it didn't actually make much difference, Mike, because I know that you had sworn Rob to secrecy about Zimbabwe. It was no longer a secret, I'm afraid.
Oh, so Rob told you...
It was common knowledge.
Okay, so...
It was a common knowledge.
Well, that's interesting. I might be a little bit quieter the next time I have these plans. But maybe, you come from KZN, so that was another thing I noticed is you had a family trip up to St. Lucia. And once again, it was amazing to see all the birds that you managed to see there. So I assume you, growing up there, you're familiar with all those forests, and you had a great opportunity to see some of those birds in KZN.
I did. It was that trip was actually that was a work trip. We just had a strategy planning meeting, thankfully in St. Lucia, where there were two options where we could have had this in Johannesburg or St. Lucia. I managed to steer the organization to do it in St. Lucia, which was strategic. But it was my backup, like I say, because I'd spent all that time in Zululand I was working on leopards for my PhD. I knew that area really well, and it's I know probably in South Africa it's not where the teams that sort of get the high scores in the birdie big days. That's normally I think in Limpopo. It's near the Kwana area you mentioned, or Southern Kruger. But I always think of Zululand as our birding mecca. And it's just there's just so many great spots. And
Umtuzini is just incredible. But you focus mostly in St. Lucia area.
Then I was in St. Lucia, and so then did the sort of Isimalang and Lucia Wetland Park, so both the eastern shores and western shores and all the specials there.
Rosie Throat and Landlaws.
Do you know what? I didn't get it. I looked at Nobela, didn't find it, so that was one of the...
Why am I hitting all the birds that you didn't get? It's,
Do you know, I did see, so some last ones that I got that trip was, which were quite unexpected, was Alan's Gastignol.
Yeah.
So, you see them every now and again, but certainly not a banker. And then there was all the Stand Forest specials, so things like Anthroid Tall Spots from South.
Near guards, did you get near guards as well?
Near guards, Rudger Palace, green twin spots, green Mokoas.
Wattle-eye.
Got the wattle-eye.
Lemon-zested canary.
Got that on the bottom of the exactly. And the southern band snaky. Got nightjar. Sorry, got sword nightjar. Sure. So there's
I'll have to check your pin because it's a tough bird. I've seen it once, but only once.
Again, fairly reliable in so very close to the Eastern Shores Gate. There's a small little road that you go off towards. There's a camp not too far away, and actually sort of where they do on horse trails from. And go there in the early morning, and you'll get.
I think that's out of my life actually.
Oh really? I've seen it here, Matikulu. So Matikulu Game Reserve, on the other side of the N2. Yeah. There was some grasslands there, and that was where I saw it. But I've looked at a Matikulu. I think my son got tip-bite fever.
Yeah, I didn't just to follow up. I didn't see a swan that. I heard it.
Okay, no, that's. And I think a lot of the birds that we look for in these spring challenges, and I think it's an important point to make, is some are very sensitive species.
Yep.
We do hide pins of some of the sensitive birds, like fanbush button quail, and obviously if someone does log a white-winged flufftail, that would be hidden. There's great benefit in sharing pins, but we must be conservation minded as well and make sure we don't threaten bird species that are under pressure. I want to talk about rarities because before we started, we were discussing, your approach to rarities in this challenge. And the one rarity which I thought I was extremely magnanimous. I got hold of you, knowing you were in St. Lucia, and obviously that sharp-tailed sandpiper, the first record for South Africa, pitched up in the Umtunzini. Trying to remember the name of the nature reserve, but I remember sending you a message and saying, Guy, where are you? When are you coming back? Why did you pop in at the nature reserve and try and get the Sharpie? But you actually ran out of time and you didn't manage to see it.
Sure, it was a conscious decision. We were there for a workshop. I think we had 2.5 days in St. Lucia, and I hadn't been back to Zululand for some time, and I actually just wanted to go and burn my old ones. And so it was a case of the free time that I had, shooting down south, sort of spending an hour driving down, looking for that one bird, coming back up again, or going and doing a lovely walk through the dune forests around there.
So yeah.
Wow. And so I just decided to do that. I will admit, I tried on the way to the airport, popped in very quickly to see if it was still there, and it was seen subsequently many times, but I didn't get it then. But
Being wrong on this one.
yeah, exactly. But I didn't follow many rarities during those.
Yeah, so the question I was going to ask you, I mean, you mentioned before we started the podcast, is that you didn't chase rarities, which I think is really cool. You're just looking for the birds that are naturally occurring in cool places.
Yeah, and so the one, I think the one that I twitched was right here, was a Franklin's Gull at Strandfontein, which is very easy. But no, for the most part, it was just getting to as many different vegetation types as possible and I guess if you're chasing a big list, that's probably the way to do it, rather sort of looking at diverse habitats rather than individual birds and spending time there. So that was more of the focus.
Out of interest, I mean, do you keep a Southern Africa list, and also how would you describe yourself as a birder? Are you like not a twitcher?
Not a twitcher, and I used to as a kid. I religiously had a life list, a Southern African list, and I stopped. I unfortunately stopped filling it in, so I'm actually no idea what my life list would get now, and so
Best way to be.
Exactly, and it's ironic because with Bïndo, I love listing. I love atlasing, and it's that part of birding really appeals to me.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it doesn't necessarily mean that I have to go and chase just one more bird but to add to that list. And
I think that's cool. I mean, I think what Bïndo also gives you, lists can be very contextual. So I think with areas in Bïndo, like Mike and I have a good friendly rivalry from our local patch up the road here at Kirstenbosch. And so you can like really focus and double down on one like really small area, or your garden list, or your and Bïndo gives you that, like you don't need to chase every rarity or things. If you can create these own like little things that work for you, fit into your life at that time.
So, Guy, we spoke about twitching.
Yep.
And obviously, you didn't have any desire to twitch during the challenge. But can you maybe give us a perspective of the use of pin drops in Bïndo? And it's impossible to say how many birds you would have missed if it wasn't for the pins, but maybe just give us some idea. And can you think of a particular bird where a Bïndo pin really helped you? And how did you use Bïndo? There's a way to get it to explore. There's a way using nearby targets. Maybe give us a perspective on pins.
Sure. So to your first question, I think a significantly less birds or fewer birds. If I hadn't used those two functions that you were talking about, if I hadn't used that, it was invaluable when it came when I knew I was going to a particular area. I'd use the explore function to see what had been seen there and what had been seen there recently.
So maybe just to clarify, so the explore function allows you to use a time period. You can use 1 week, you can use a month, you can use all time, and you can zoom in on the map and it'll highlight all the sightings of all birds which have been seen in a particular area in where you've zoomed in on the map.
Exactly.
That gives you a good perspective of what.
And like I say, and almost to the bush.
Yeah.
And so I clearly remember, I think Rob had logged a protein canary on a small road just outside of Clanmillium. I was heading up north towards Pofada, and it was just a 2-minute detour off the road, and boom, another turkey pelagic.
So, I mean, that's a bird protein canary is one of my favorite birds because it's an endemic. It's named after an endemic plant. It's tough, and it's always nice to find the tough endemics. It's a bird you definitely wouldn't have seen during the challenge without.
No, absolutely. That and there were many examples. I remember the one morning messaging you with a call of a African rock pipit outside Buckham, and that again, I looked hard for that bird on Sani Pass, a couple of other places on the trip. I think also there's somewhere close to Uppington there that there's a small isolated population. Had dipped there and followed the pin at Buckham to the copy, there it was, calling first thing in the morning. And I did that time and time and time again. So firstly, using it to set out the broad list of what I'd like to find in an area if I was traveling there, and then specific points for specific birds. What I had to target.
I mean, you obviously had a spring challenge self-curated list that you created, and then you could use the species that you were missing on that, so the nearby targets on that species map. And so essentially you could see what was at the top of the list, and then you could use the explore function to find out where those birds are most likely to be seen.
Exactly. And it also just made sure that I ticked everything that there's often you might forget to do that. Yeah. So that's another great function of the app, that it's a reminder to you what you should be looking for, and if you have seen it, to tick it.
It's interesting because, I think with a lot of, like obviously with SABAP, which is a critical citizen science project, there's a protocol, and we abide by the protocols when we submit cards. Obviously eBird has their own protocols. But the thing I love about Bïndo, the thing I love the most about Bïndo is people say, oh, how do you use it? I say, you literally open the app and you see a bird and you log it.
Sure.
And all of those just randomly dropped pins, always not couch logged, but in the right place. They are useful data for people that are looking for certain species, and particularly birds that are interesting. I mean, I had a Graven Franklin on the weekend up at Kaapstad, calling at the entrance to Silvermine. And I know that it's worth logging because people will be interested in that. It's not an easy bird on the peninsula. So it's a very useful part
And I must also say up front, I am a technological caveman. I am hopeless when it comes to technology, and I can use that.
Yeah, that's great to see.
Super user friendly. And again, if you're chasing a big list, if you're doing a sort of a exercise or a competition like this, it compared to SABAP or eBird or any of these other platforms, it gives you the really fine scale resolution, which allows you to
literally drop at a GPS point
and go find that bird.
Yeah.
I think just quickly to add to that, the feature that not many people know about or use is that, so on the log screen, you can obviously click the plus and add a species, but if you click on the species name, it takes you to a species page. And just in the top right, there's a small little map icon. If you click on that, that gives you all the pins for that species. So to your point, if you're looking for African rock pipit, you'll literally see every pin for that species across the country and navigate exactly to where you need to go.
And then, Dave, you can also use the slider to give you, like, in the last week.
Exactly.
And so not only does it give you all time, and it gives you essentially a distribution map. And obviously over time, these distribution maps are going to become a lot more granular and a lot more relevant. But you can also use the slider and say, when has African rock pipit been seen in the last week?
Yeah. So I mean, obviously there's another platform that can do that.
Yeah.
I mean, eBird will push you to a hotspot, and SABAP will give you pentile level data, but not specific points.
That's super useful.
Invaluable too.
So I think what I want to talk about is the last few weeks of the challenge. So maybe coming from where I was at, Rob had unfortunately
behind.
Yes, I was always. We discussed it. I was always behind. But sometimes it's best to be the underdog. And having heard now that Rob was sharing a lot of intel with you, and he was sharing absolutely none with me, I had no idea of what your plans were towards the end. And I think, in fact, I'd been led to believe that you're basically homebound. I think maybe your family had put their foot down and said, listen, no more birding. You've done enough. Maybe let Mike catch up a little bit, something like that. But so I was, I think, around 450-ish. And I looked at your number. You were like 525, 530. And I had this 1 week that I was going to be spending in Zimbabwe. And I knew that there was a lot of good birds that I could see there and a lot of new stuff. And I actually thought in my mind, if I could get to 540, maybe 545, I would have a very good chance. And one of those shocking moments was I woke up one morning, looked at my app, and I see you're logging birds in the Wilderness George area. Flufftails, redneck spurfowl, nice little warblers, and I see the number creeping, and I'm thinking, I'm so screwed. But I do nothing because it's best not to panic. And then the next morning I wake up, and you're no longer in the George Wilderness area. You're now in Middelburg, in the middle of the Karoo. We're talking about Middelburg in the Eastern Cape. The Western Cape? Is it Eastern Cape? It's just in the Eastern Cape.
I think so.
And it was at that point that I cracked. And I thought, the only way I can do this is actually to communicate directly with you. At 6:30 in the morning, I sent you a WhatsApp. I said, Guy, what the hell are you doing? So maybe we all know that I came second. I got to 541, and we know you got to 600. But that last 6 days of your challenge was insane. Maybe just give us a little rundown of your itinerary, where you were going, and how many birds you saw in those 6 days. We'd love to hear about that.
Sure. And also, I must just admit, Mike, so I didn't actually have a plan either, and my wife had very much told me to stop birding. I don't think that was your benefit. I think she just,
maybe you should ask her if she got any messages from Mike Bucket to talk something.
But I think most people, especially my wife, will tell you there's not many things I do in half measures, and the ball was rolling by that stage, and so I was deeply into this, and I did have one final meeting that I needed to get to a show. And we had a meeting with KZN Wildlife that I needed to be in a show on a particular day. And I was like, quite easily.
Quickest way, fly to Durban, take a car.
Super easy. Yeah, wouldn't even need it overnight. But I managed somehow to provide the rationale to my better half that I was going to drive and just take a couple of detours. So as you said, I left Cape Town around midnight, got to Wilderness in the midnight. Got to Wilderness early morning, just sort of pre-dawn. Mountains just behind the Wilderness, and like you say, onto striped fluff. I actually think I got all 3 flufftail species in the space of that morning. Neither warbler, neither woodpecker, that just
tobaccos,
just
spurfowl.
Exactly. Also, it was all the sort of the forest birds, and we came down and birded the estuary and along the coast. It was spectacular. Then that night, drove again in the middle of the night to arrive in Middelburg early morning.
When did you sleep?
Very little. Very little. There was a lot of driving, a lot of podcasts, and a lot of birding. And so got to Middelburg, ticked off, I think, Birchall's, Corsa, and Pinkbilled Lark.
That was the moment I was messaging you. I said, "What are you doing?" And you said, "I'm looking for a Birchall's Corsa." And then 20 minutes later, you sent me a message saying you got it.
There we go. And I didn't, just flew over. Spectacular sighting. It was fantastic. And drove from there to Sani Pass. So overnighted at Sani Pass, birded Sani the next day, which was spectacular. Left Sani.
If I could interrupt.
Go for it.
Because there was a discussion between us because I had left the country. I'd gone to...
None of those things can't.
So... You'd said to me very sort of high and mighty that my challenge list was way less spectacular than yours because I'd left the country. So you did have one bird that you logged that was actually outside of South Africa. What was that?
I tried very hard at the top of Sani Pass to look for mountain pipit from the South African side, but it was nowhere to be found. So I actually had to cross into the city, and it was about 50 meters into the studio, and there it was on the side of the road. So that was the one and only bird that I saw.
And you got Strawberry's rock jumper, you got the Siskins.
Got bearded vulture.
Oh, did you? Okay.
I think bush blackcap, the Gertie sugarbird.
Those warbler as well, but you probably had that before.
Yes.
Swanee area.
But just, it is such a spectacular place to bird. That's when I saw the serval as well. So that was a real highlight.
Sure.
And then shot from there through to Maritzburg. So overnighted in Maritzburg, and then that birded that.
Sorry to interrupt you, but now you've got a very clear picture of what you still need.
Yes,
it's not just random birding.
No,
so you've got an idea from your nearby targets, from the missing species.
So this, for the first time, it had changed to now. This was hardcore going to the area to tick 10 birds here, 5 birds there, 3 there, and so and you know what, it was an amazing trip. So I can cut it short. So I did Pietermaritzburg and the Kalkloof region the next day. Then I that night drove up to Zululand and did the rest of Zululand that I hadn't done. So the Pinda and Kuzi and up into Tembe, Plainback Sunbird just outside.
Oh, did you get Plainback Sunbird again?
Yeah, it's beautiful something. Raft of other species. Overnight at Tembe, then drove through to Wackerstrom the next day. Did all the Wackerstrom birds. Overnighted there, drove early, middle of the night again to Zarkelsdrift, did Zarkelsdrift the following day, and then back to Cape Town. So it was 6 days in total, and it was, I think in those 6 days, in total saw just shy of 450 birds, so 441 species.
Absolutely.
Did you drive Zarkelsdrift, Cape Town in one go?
I did.
And what time did you leave?
2 in the morning.
That's it.
So there was not much sleep. There was a lot of driving in, and probably I loved every second of it. But it just got a little bit too much at that time. It was too much chase. You were locked in, and you couldn't exactly pull out. And you couldn't even do that. I couldn't even almost sit back and enjoy this.
I mean, the reason you're locked in is that you were nearing 600. So, I mean, when you left Zafi's, you if I remember correctly, your 600th was on the way back. It wasn't at Zafi's. So
No.
you were still, I assume you had a few potential targets that you were looking for. And your 600th was?
It was a common Swift, so nothing too spectacular. In the just past Bloemfontein. Okay. So in the crew. So nothing like I said.
And once you'd seen the common Swifts, that was it, eh? Then it was...
You just pull over and fell asleep.
That's the other side. So swabs out the
And
window.
was that on 30 November, or did you have?
I had a couple of days, and so I did have some backups.
Yes, you said you had.
I had an Indian pea fowl as a backup. That would have been, I think, a sorry species to finish on, to be quite honest. But I also could have taken the kayak out and tried to get some seabirds. But it was a big relief. I would have loved to.
Your wife was going to take your car keys away when you got back.
Well, probably. But I was hoping to tick it off at Zafi's. But this is dry.
Yes, I know. The rains is very different in November to what it is here.
So none of the Paleon like dry far. Told you. So none of the
none of the Palearctic warblers. There's really a lot of trees. No river warblers.
I got ectorine, but missed river warblers.
There's no Lesser hens.
No. Yeah. Dwarf bitten didn't. None of those. None of the rattleds. None of those were.
Yeah.
I was hoping to get. What was I looking for? So I can't even remember. There was a couple of birds I was hoping to tick in Zafi's that I didn't. Yeah. But again, I also I had half a day. And so you're rushing around, and it was...
It's quite interesting. I mean, just talking about Zafi's and the seasonality there. I mean, we're Capetonians, and, this is our... For us, the spring challenge really is the start of our birding season. I know it's a little bit later, sort of up north, but it's a nice challenge because as we get into November, things start to get a little dry here. The wind starts blowing, and the fly season's over.
That's why birding week day is actually a tough time of year for us.
Very tough for us.
To up north,
yeah. So I mean, it's why we love the spring challenge at Bïndo's, because it's over a nice 3-month period. The Capetonians have a bit of a field day at the beginning, and then the people further north can have a field day towards the end. And I think it's a great way to bring all Bïndo birders together for a nice 3-month period. And so, I mean, I guess we've probably let this run quite long, but it's super fascinating. I mean, great stories.
This is an amazing 3 months.
Absolutely. So I guess the big question is, I suspect the better half is not going to allow it, but I assume you're going to put your name up there and you're going to log a few species. You may not be.
Well, Mike, are you doing it again?
I'm definitely doing it again, but
I feel I have to keep you up. So there we go.
I can't wait. Actually, there might be a few little trips planned.
I'm actually intrigued to know if someone can break 600.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm guessing not, because it's a massive effort.
I think it's possible. I think there's.
I'm sure if someone focuses, they can, but someone's just.
Well, I mean, it seemed doubtful at times, but you do have a full-time job. I mean,
I do have a full-time.
So. I think if someone had the time over 3 months, it's definitely possible. But managing it the way you did it, it would be.
So again, the trick is getting to as many different vegetation types as possible.
Yeah.
So I missed some of the really dry northern parts of the country, and I didn't. I was in Kruger and in Mpumalanga for a couple of days, but early on. And so a lot of the migrant species that you would normally get in Kruger and North, so I didn't get double, I don't know, it's not a migrant, but double-banded sandglass, I never got.
Okay.
European roller, never got. There was some African barred harlots. I know these, and some of them are migrants, but there were lots of simple birds that you could...
These are just quieter that time of year.
Exactly. And so... Yeah, I think if at that stage I was not planning on looking at 600 birds, and I'd maybe rejig when to go where to go when now. But no, I think 600 is beatable. We got to put the challenge out there.
It's interesting if you think about it in the context of a big year, right? So if someone has a big year over 12 months, the target's 800. Yeah. Mike, can you recall what the record was?
I think I think Neil Perrins did like 832 or something.
Okay. So I mean,
Is that South Africa or
Southern Africa. When you think about it, like, you can do 600 in 3 months, and you've got the rest of the year to like pick off 200 or 250.
But it gets, I mean, it's the laws of diminishing returns.
100%. It's like,
Yeah. And there you have to, I mean, if you want to get over 800 in a year, you have to.
You have to go everywhere.
You have to plan your year to hit the right habitat zones at the right time. So you've got to be at darkies in February.
Yep.
And you've got to be in sort of the tank in September.
You've got to do the right pelagic. You've got to be get all the pelagic.
Yeah, you've got to do a summer pelagic. You've got to do a shoulder season pelagic. You've got to do a winter pelagic.
Yeah.
But if I don't a pelagic, I think there's another 15 species. About 20 species.
Yeah, I mean, maybe Rob can pay for your pelagic this time around. I think he pretty much teed it up for you last year.
I'm still waiting for that whiskey. So,
but I think it's very important to make the comment. Like, you got 600 species, and I was absolutely delighted to get 540. But the idea of the challenge is not for people to worry about getting those numbers. The idea is, like, the prize is 100. But if people go out there and like 50 species, if they're new birders, they've never identified a bird before in their lives, and they hear about Bïndo and they get started. I think the key is we try to create this. I keep using the word community, but we speak a lot about community at Bïndo. The key is to get people talking about birding, and you know, we really want to emphasize the fact that you're birding with friends. There's a feed. You can see what your mates are doing. You can follow where they are on the leaderboard. I know my son competes with all his varsity mates, and they're all new birders, and they want to beat him. So it's an amazing way to enjoy birding across the whole spectrum, not just at the sharp end, which you and I are fortunate enough to have had the time to do it last year.
Absolutely. And it democratizes birding. To be quite honest, you don't need to be a bird guide to know where those specials are. You can just get onto the app.
Don't tell the bird guides what you just said.
Apologies.
No, it's a fair concept. Not everyone can afford the expensive birding.
Absolutely. And it really does. It provides an opportunity to go out and just see some incredible species, because it is such a valuable tool. Yeah, and that shows you where to go and how to do it. And so, no, I loved it. But with so many fond memories, and I'd love to give it a bash again.
Well, I think we have to do a Tanquid trip together this year. I think I'm going to give you a shot.
Please do.
I think we've Dave, is there anything else that you think is worth raising at this stage? I mean, I think we've covered a lot of topics. We've probably gone on longer than we intended to, but I hope it's been interesting and valuable.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, well done, Guy. It was great to watch you, and I'm actually interested to see your mic lands this year on the leaderboard.
Well, I have got another bottle of whiskey at stake with Rob. I'm giving him a small little handicap because he performed very poorly last year. He didn't even get 300. So as disappointing as it was for me to finish second, I don't even think he was in the top 20.
But I think it would also be nice to do a follow-up, because you have said that during the next spring, you've only got 2 trips. So you're going to Joburg once, I think you mentioned, and you're possibly going to KZN just for a short trip.
Yeah, and I might there's a Bertelslark survey weekend, which I might participate in.
Okay, but so that's it. So we won't see any other trips.
This time I'm going to keep a little bit closer to my chest. No, we're super pumped for it. We're going to be at Bird Fair.
Super.
So Rob and I will be at the Bird Fair, African Bird Fair, put on by BirdLife South Africa. That's at the Pretoria Botanical Gardens. It's going to give us a nice little bump to our list.
I was going to say.
Because I don't intend to be in Pretoria too often in the Spring Challenge. So if you're listening to this podcast and you happen to be at Bird Fair and you want to come meet Rob and I and you want to see how the app works, we'd love to chat to you. And anyone who's interested in Bïndo, not using it as much as they'd like to, and you want to pop us a question, please do so. And Guy, final thanks to you for entertaining us this evening. And yeah, we really look forward to doing some more birding with you, and look forward to seeing how you fare in the 2025 Bïndo Spring Challenge.
I'm going to start getting some sleep already. But thanks, Mike. It was an absolute pleasure, and looking forward to it. Cool.